Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Bless you. I am here today with my brother, Pastor Tilman of the One Church. And I thank you for being the inaugural guest of the Wisdom Hours, the Wisdom Media Group's interview session. So we are going to be talking about today the church. Pastor Tilman and I have sat down before. He has many podcasts. I will make sure to link his information in below. So let's get to it, Pastor Tilman. First and foremost, how you doing?
I'm good.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Working content creating is a full-time experience.
We're going to talk about that idea of content creating.
So I've just been working on creating systems around producing that stuff, and been doing some traveling, still teaching yoga.
Okay.
And we started a mobile food pantry.
Okay.
So we've been giving out food since Thanksgiving. We choose a location and we go out.
Pastor Tilman pastors a church called the One Church. One Ministries. And the reason why it was important for me to have you here for this talk is because you have been in the digital space for, I'm going to say, for the last 5 or more years now. You've been doing podcasts and you've been, again, in the digital space as a content creator, really coming from a traditional pastor into this idea of podcasts and putting stuff online. So first I want you to tell me, how have you found that endeavor versus the regular church, the church way? People come into church, they sit down, they clap, they do all these things. And so now being a content creator, where most of your stuff is going out on the digital space, how do you see the differences between traditional church and this new church?
With traditional church, you have to manage people. So as a pastor, part of the hardest part of pastoring is not Sunday morning. The hardest part of pastoring is engagement with people and whatever their problems are, whatever they're going through. In digital space, you just have to manage content. So if and I know that sounds weird, right? So I do live recording, and we have a faithful small group of people that come on, and I take that live experience and then I put it out. But I have about 500 people that listen to that.
Okay, so clearly there are some advantages, but we'll have to. So from someone who is moving into the digital space, it's scary for me. I will admit that it is scary for me because I preface by saying I pastor a church, and the founder of the church has always championed the fact that he was unorthodox. But for me, it has always been a great level of tension because I am very orthodox. I am very systematic and believe in things from a systematic perspective. And so I still believe in the church. I still believe that the people should come, the people should gather, the people should be a part of the community, because there's so many things that we get and we benefit from coming together. We'll talk more about. But there is a change in the society. There is a change in the mindset of the people where, people are out living their lives and doing their things. Where church used to be the center of a lot of what people do and did. Now, church is another part in a chain of things that people have to do. And so now moving from the idea of traditional church to content creating gives me a great bit of trepidation, because I wonder, what does that mean for the church? So what does that mean for the church?
Well, she will always survive because God keeps his church.
Okay.
So how she shapes up and how she looks it's really what society norms. But, I mean, before we had cathedrals and all, we met in houses. You know what I mean? So as society evolved and cathedrals came, it was micro churches. So you had 5 pastors in the community,
Mm-hmm.
and they might have all had 10 people apiece,
Mm-hmm.
and they was happy with that. Then it became mega church. So
Right.
go through that mega church period. The micro pastor is no longer relevant, and now we have all these buildings and cathedrals and space overhead that we probably couldn't afford, and calamity hits. So now we regress. It's just like the stock market. We retrace back to where we started, small gatherings, and how do we get the word out? Our job is to get the word out.
Okay.
Our job is not to be real estate investors. I mean, it's part of it, but our job is to get the word out. So how do we get the word out that Jesus still saying?
So you see this particular time as all opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Okay. All right. That you said some things that will challenge my thinking and make me think, especially the part about going back from where we were, the traditional church sizes, maybe the average church size in America was really just like 75.
Mm-hmm.
And then the advent of the mega church made everybody think that that's what church was. But regression to the mean. Okay, I gotta process that and think about that. So I've been working on this concept and dealing with this concept, which I call voyeurism church. Now, when I was contemplating it, I know it was going to be jarring for some, because when some people think about voyeurism, they think about voyeurism from the sexual aspect, where people like to watch people doing different things and undress. But then there is an element of voyeurism that is liking to see people's pain. But in this new space, people have been asking the question, are we enjoying watching church? Are we getting pleasure just from the idea of watching it? So when I think about the concept of voyeurism, church is like, okay, people just watch. People are binge watching church. Everybody's on live. So somebody, we get out of church early. So I get out of church. I'm out of church at 12. Maybe I'll look online and I see somebody posting somebody's live. Then I look again, that same person is posting somebody else's live. So it's like they're binge watching church. So church is just like Netflix or Hulu or something, where people are putting it out there and they're just watching. But my question is there a danger in viewership versus not having membership? So you got viewership, but no membership. So are there dangers in
fellowship, because we should have fellowship, which is why we do virtual. We do our what I call mobile ministry. We do our food pantry. We do I teach yoga, so we do yoga pop-ups, and we help people in the health and wellness area. So the opportunities are there. There are opportunities now for ministry and to reach people on a different level that before I only thought about the space that I was in. So I only wanted to fellowship or reach people in the 1 mile radius of the physical location. Now my mind is thinking about ministry on a whole different level. Instead of me doing the pantry in Bed-Stuy, because that's where the physical building is at, I can say, you know what, next month I want to go to Long Island. Next month I want to go to, so I'm impacting more people because I think I'm impacting more people. I may not be, but I'm able to touch people that I wouldn't necessarily be touching. We provide food for churches. So I'll give, and I don't need to be in the forefront. We have a church or ministry that want to do a pantry or do something like that. We'll provide the food for them, and I'll just wash my hands, because I'm not thinking about ministry on that micro level anymore. I've been freed from that mindset.
But do people lose connection?
Yeah.
So I photographed a friend's event, and her name is Overseer Collins. And she during her event, she does an annual service called Lemonade. And it was from, things that she had survived in the past. But in the COVID age, her and her daughter both caught COVID. And very dramatic. She wrote a book, 15 minutes. It chronicles her journey where she coded twice and she was, in essence, deceased for 15 minutes. And so I'm at her service and they're doing an interview section of the service. And she talked about how her church family took care of her and her daughter. They were the ones interfacing with doctors when neither one of them could. They were really the backbone of their survival. So one of the things I question with this idea of viewership versus membership. Yes, you can reach people, right? You truly become worldwide, right? Become a global ministry because someone in Sri Lanka can pick you up at 2 o'clock in the morning. But with that being said, do we lose something? The community, the iron sharpens iron, the looking out for each other. If somebody's missing, you can call them, or if somebody is down and out, that sense of camaraderie and family. Do you lose that in this new digital space?
No, I think it tightens because now I can focus on the group. So if I have a group of 10, if I have a group of 20, if I have a group of, I really focus on the group and not really focus on the things that we consider ministry. Like I grew up in church where we would have service, not to worship because we had to pay the mortgage and people need to come get it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So now it's like, all right, we're going to go out, we're going to hand this food out together.
Okay.
We're going to go out, we become more ministry minded because the focus is not on overhead.
So,
and then we do have overhead.
Okay.
So you do have, if you're gonna do it well, you're gonna have overhead.
Right. There's always a cost to ministry.
Yeah, I'm always investing in technology. So now, for me, where I was paying a musical staff $700, $800, whatever a week, right? For me, my new musician is a program that's going to help enhance the experience that I'm getting. That's more valuable than having a musician.
Okay. So for you, increase viewership increases your reach, but doesn't decrease your touch amongst the people.
That's the thing. I don't know. I don't know how. It's hard. That's the thing about the content creation. It's hard to measure in metrics. It's hard to measure impact,
Right.
especially from what we're doing. The only way that I can know if I was a blessing to somebody, I'll get an inbox, I'll get emails from pastors in Africa, I'll get like stuff like that. They say, "Oh man, your studies help us," because I'm like you. Everything is kind of systematic. I'm always thinking about where, like, case in point, I'm in a series called "Back to the Basics."
Okay.
Going back to calling each other brother and sister. Going back to the spirit of evangelism, to sharing to truly sharing the gospel. I'm going to have our people do their 1-minute testimonies. Before I met Christ, I felt this way. Then I met Christ, I felt that way. Now, I'm not saying my life is perfect, but I want to introduce Christ to you. Like showing people how to really not build a church, but how to really build disciples, because that's what we're called to do.
Yes, and it's funny you say back to basics, and I see many people in the space. They are talking about getting back to a basic, and I'm doing this concept of alignment. So, in thinking about alignment and thinking about back to the basics, are we missing or losing something in this new age of thinking where, again, we've increased reach, but the touch is missing. So last night I got an inbox from someone who doesn't go to the church, but they're dealing with a situation with their mother and they need someone to talk to. Now, while I'm not their pastor, they know the church is here, church available, used to be a member, and you know that spiritual touch or that spiritual connection, or I'm on different times, and the reach allows people from out of state to watch it, but still some people need to talk to someone. They need the touch and the connection with leadership and with church. So part of my concern is, as we are reaching, are we losing our touch?
Yeah, I think so. In marketing, I also have a course online called the Mindful Marketer. Since I've started podcasting and doing all that, I've developed these courses. And part of the marketing experience is creating community. And there's various ways to create community through church, through the online experience. So if you're gonna build online, I don't think Facebook, so when I'm talking about creating content and stuff and building out, Facebook Live is not an online ministry. Okay. That's a small peg to a bigger process. And if you're not, if you don't have a plan on how to connect and then how to ascend that connection, that people become part of that your community, whatever the space that your community is going to feel and look like. So once COVID hit, I used to be on Facebook Live because I didn't have a podcast for the church. And once COVID hit, I would move. I don't put up. I don't use Facebook. Okay. A part of the connection in the online community is getting the person to make a step. See, the warrior is Facebook Live. I can pass you by, and I can look for 5 minutes, go somewhere else, look for 5 minutes. But if I'm challenging people to go to my website, I'm challenging people to go to. You have to seek me out. Right. Then I know when I look at the numbers, 500 people watched this week. You know what I mean? Like they sought me out. They didn't just pass it. They didn't just find me passively. Like our church podcast. I have 2 podcasts. Our church podcast now is ranking in the 500, which for a year, 2 years. But I already use certain systems and stuff for us to rank. We have over 5,000 downloads, and we get engagement. That's a real community. People are out there looking in the spiritual space for people to connect with.
So you call that engagement? The fact that someone made a click, they went to the website, that's engagement.
In a digital space.
So what is what we do in church?
What we do in church is engagement. That's why we always say, touch your neighbor. Like we try to get people in to engage on a certain level. You'll always have those members that won't engage.
Right.
You have an afternoon service, they're not coming. You have a Friday night prayer, they won't be there, but they'll come on Sunday morning. You know what I mean? So the digital space, although it has removed some of the human elements, with COVID there was exposed a lot of the lies that we as leaders.
Okay, talk to me. Talk to me, because I like the way you phrased it. COVID exposed. And I tell people all the time, COVID didn't cause what we are sensing and what we are seeing now. Even before COVID, when people came to church, the digital space has always been in the church. When they brought them phones in there, and when you up there, you talking and you trying to do whatever, they're doing their grocery list, they're checking their social media, they're doing so COVID has not caused this current situation, but it does expose it. It expose it. So continue more on that and talk about it.
Pre-COVID, imagine you in the church and your pastor's preaching against digital social media. And it's the devil. You shouldn't be on Facebook. You shouldn't use these platforms. This is leading into.
It's still the devil.
Yeah, I mean, it's how you use it.
It's still the devil. But
the same fingers that can scroll to church scroll to X-ray. And then all of a sudden now you're encouraging people to do it. So if it was demonic and it didn't have no space in the church pre-COVID, because it became necessity, it's still demonic and it still shouldn't have space. But if it wasn't demonic and it didn't have space, and somebody wasn't being truthful. Because what we sensed is we seen people walking away. So in order to get people to stay in the current contract, that covenant, you got to come here. That alternative is demonic.
It became necessity.
Right?
Right?
But we called it can't be necessity today because we need it. That's what necessity is. But yesterday it was the devil.
I still think it's the devil.
Okay.
I still think it's the devil. And sometimes, necessity, whatever you want to call it. So I think about the effects of screens. How over the last, 20 years, is, in my estimation, has been an erosion in society. And I think it's primarily because people are tuned out, because they are tuned into content on the screen. You look at the Facebook metrics and they tell you how, in Instagram metrics, how damaging some of these social media platforms are, especially to young girls and people dealing with images. I go back to time I took my son to the movies. John Wick 3, right? He's there, and at certain elements early in the movie, I can tell it's disturbing him because he's asking questions, and while he understands that what's on the screen on some level is not real, but he can't fully distinguish because schoolwork and different things that's on screens, we say, well, take it seriously. But he's not able to distinguish that John Wick killing 400 people in the movie is not real, right? We can, because on some level we can disassociate from it. It's not real. Seeing a movie where 100 people die in a plane crash, it's not real. So we disassociate from it, right? But then there's also an element where the screen, with the rise of, reality TV, we're having all these influencers and different things, and people are trying to aspire to this image that we know is not real, and they're hurting themselves. So on one level, we disassociate from it, and then on another level, we try to embrace something that we know is not real. The screen does that. And this is my fear, that the church, as it becomes another thing on the screen, because we see so much of it, then apathy builds up. Oh, that's just church. But then what we see in all of these people's lives, and in the church is this and the church is that, like you said, we think that the church is 8,000 people big, and all of the choirs are singing well, and all of the preachers got catchphrases. So there's an element that we try to obtain or aspire to that's not real. So with the church being so much on the screen these days, I wonder the psychological effects that it has on people in terms of what they perceive the church and its mission to be, right? Is it something of, I can catch it whenever I want to, or church is not real if it's not 700 people and a well-known preacher and a well-known singer. So I think it's still the devil, but it's the devil that we must, the devil that we must deal with because of the age.